The Backup is the part of the show where we talk about the most hard-hitting news of the week, as long as it's about video games, and as long as it is sponsored by !Tim. Get your Tims out in the chat, because the Back Podcast is brought to you by Hero Pocketeer Tim from the Learn Programming Academy. Get your !Tims out in the chat, because the Learn Programming Academy offers classes covering the entire range of programming that are easy to watch for all skill levels, and they're almost all $20 or less. Head to lpa.dev/backpocket to download the custom Backpocket info guide on everything Tim has to offer and become the coding genius you didn't know you always were. Now, we haven't spoken about this publicly, but we do need to announce some news about the Backup.
Oh no!
And Tim,
it's gonna happen.
And that is that while I still recommend going to the Learn Programming Academy for all your programming needs.
Wait, Dolphin Pants makes a good point. World exclusive.
Thank you very much. That was a very good point. We do have the news that this is going to be the second last news that Tim sponsors. Because Tim is getting out of the programming game.
Well, the getting is good.
The getting is good. He is transitioning to another phase of his career, and it's my understanding that that phase of his career is going to be full-time millionaire.
Sipping cocktails out of coconuts on beaches all around the world.
Early retirement. And so Tim's like, well, I'm not going to pay to advertise a business I don't own anymore, and that someone else does. And so Tim did inform us this a couple of weeks ago and said that he appreciated everything that we've done. And I was like, mate, you've done a lot more for us than we've done for you. But he did want to give us a heads up. So there will be a new spot open for a new. Oh God, this has all happened too fast. We really do need to change the name of that Patreon too.
Also, like, massive congratulations to Tim, like selling your company and successfully as well. Like, he's obviously done so well with it that he's like getting out, and we wish him all the best as well. But as Nick said, we now have a very appealing spot for sponsorship.
And we did recommend that Tim become an influencer and keep the sponsorship, and just !Tim is just all about Tim. That's and right. Tim's hot new swimwear
TikTok
line.
Dances.
Yeah. And also Pete made a very good point, which is this is not a guarantee, but it's as close to a guarantee as where you can legally give without it being a guarantee. But if you sponsor this part of the show, you will become incredibly successful when you sell off your business. So you should. So anyone who has a startup right now should sponsor the backup, because it's going to happen for you. So we'll open that tier up. You can jump in, and congratulations to Tim. And we will miss saying your name and your ! And we're going to need to do something about that Nightbot auto thing that every time someone puts in the ! Tim, it should redirect to like just a picture of Tim really happy in like a Hawaiian shirt with a pina colada.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we can host that somewhere.
I've had a knock at the door. I'll keep padding. I'll be back in.
Did you get another bed
seconds.
delivered? God damn it.
Why does he get everything delivered and I'm getting a phone call as well. I'll answer mine live on.
Oh my God. Yeah, me too. I'm so popular.
Oh, this is Nick.
I just got a fax. 1 second. Was that Tim?
The phone call I got
Tim.
was from Gus's delivery guy.
What?
Because I could hear.
Gus?
I could hear them go, Gus, yeah, that's me. Delivery, yeah, all good. I got a phone call from them.
Did you order that for him?
Did I buy you something and I forgot?
I don't know. You tend to.
What the fuck is happening?
Have I bought something for Gus and I just... Oh my God.
Did you buy him noodles?
Ramen?
No. So, someone... Okay. So, someone...
Oh, you know what this is? This is from Double Jump. It's a kit. It's a kit for tomorrow night.
It is too.
And it has your number attached to it.
It is too.
That all makes sense.
Okay. Because I was like... there is a viewer out there who A, knows Gus is hungry, B, has Gus's address, and C, has my phone number, and D, we should be worried.
All good. Okay, right. I won't pop that up just yet, but that was very, very confusing. And what a way to start the news.
I'm excited. Okay, good. Should we jump into the news proper now, gentlemen?
I think so.
I think we probably should.
We're overdue.
And we're going to start it off with, speaking of overdue, it's been overdue, but it's finally happened. The new Call of Duty has been officially revealed. The teaser dropped at the end of last week, and then in-game in Warzone on Friday, I believe it was, they played the full trailer for Call of Duty Vanguard, the new COD that's coming out in November. Before we get into the news of the of what the game is, I did just want to read a statement from studio head Aaron Halen from Sledgehammer, because obviously there's a ton going on with Activision right now, and really none of it is good. And so when they put out the reveal for this game, then Aaron made this statement, which was, "The stories and pain people have suffered are simply devastating. We love making games. That's what we do. It's our life's work, and we love it. But more importantly than that, we're all humans. We're here for each other, working side by side and looking out for one another in good times and bad times. So on behalf of Sledgehammer Games and all the teams supporting Call of Duty Vanguard, harassment of any kind goes against everything we stand for as a studio. Everyone, regardless of title, role, gender, orientation, ethnicity, should be always treated with dignity, respect, and equality. While we cannot comment on the lawsuit, what I can say is that as a team, we are committed to making sure all team members feel safe, welcome, and respected. So please know as we start our presentation that these thoughts and actions are at the top of our minds and will be going forward. They speak to the core values of who we are and who we wish to be. On behalf of everyone on the team, thank you." There's no easy way to switch gears talking to our game, so please pardon me for the awkward transition. The team runs across the studio. The teams across the studio have been looking forward to this day for quite some time, and they've done amazing work, and it's my honor to share this with you. And Sledgehammer were one of the studios that signed the document that had gone around a lot of Activision studios demanding change and demanding some sort of accountability with all of the harassment claims that have been running rife throughout Activision. So I do commend Aaron for starting the presentation with something like this. We definitely saw in the past, like when Ubisoft were at the beginning of their process, and I think it was during E3, and they sort of like buried their official statement in a post show or something. So it's good that Aaron sort of like got out there at the top. So addressing that, Call of Duty Vanguard, we are going back to World War II. We got some details about the single player, the multiplayer, and Warzone and zombies. Gus, let's start with you. How did you feel about the Vanguard reveal?
Look, it's exciting. I'm going to be honest. I think I might have made my thoughts about the setting pretty clear. I think we talked about this a while back when it was teased. But look, I'm not thrilled about going back to World War II. We talked about the difficulty in finding global conflict to make a Call of Duty game around, and I feel like there's been more interesting steps, and this feels like a little bit of a step backwards. We have got details about the single-player campaign in there, which is kind of, they've said, rooted in historical accuracy, but it is a fictional story about a bunch of it's like a bunch of soldiers from different countries all coming together near the end of World War II to like stomp out the last efforts by the Nazi Party to stay relevant. So, I mean, there's an interesting fictional story.
Stay
there.
relevant. Pete, are you smiling at stay relevant as well?
Sorry, like
I was laughing at a little banter that was going on in chat where Avexia said, "I'm kind of over World War shooters," and Multifish retorted with, "Yeah, where's the world peace shooters?"
Yeah, it's good.
There you go.
Making a very good point in a snarky way.
Yeah, like there's still interesting fictional stories to be, told around global conflicts like World War I and II, and I think that will be the most interesting part. I just think there's been some really cool developments in terms of where COD have gone with their gameplay and with their gunplay and how they've perfected really their modern warfare and then managing to get the 80s kind of into it with Cold War. So yeah, I've played a lot of World War II games, and that, again, it sounds terrible to be like I'm tired of that or something. It's still an incredibly horrific time in history that's like, shouldn't just be
it's safe.
But it's like, so I'm not just gonna be like, I don't want to, but I also don't want to play video games in it. And then there's that discussion about like, ones that are based in reality versus fictional wars in the future and stuff. But where do you draw the line? So yeah, I'm not thrilled about it, but it's COD. I don't really know where. If someone asked me where else would you have gone with the game series, I couldn't have given you a good answer. We know going far into the future doesn't really end well either for a lot of these games, or hasn't in the past. So yeah, I'm less thrilled about that. I am more thrilled about, I'm sure we'll get to it, the idea that this is that they are going to make a secondary Warzone map area that's all going to have the vehicles, the weapons. They're not going to try and blend it awkwardly in with everything else that exists currently in the COD universe, the CODiverse. So I'm excited that there will then be this kind of like separate bubble for the Warzone aspect of it, which is my favorite part of Call of Duty at the moment. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the single player campaign, I just don't see myself being drawn into it like I was with the Modern Warfare reboot recently and even Cold War. So I don't know. Do you guys both played the previous single player campaigns and kind of hated them?
The Modern Warfare one was awesome.
Sorry?
The Modern Warfare one was awesome. It was the best COD campaign in ages. And then the Cold War one was atrocious.
It was average.
It was average, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, an average Call of Duty campaign. This one looks heaps more exciting to me. I love World War games.
Yeah, this is your thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as much as you can love anything that's about one of the most horrendous events of human history.
Good save.
But I think it's an interesting setting to tell stories. Obviously, there are a lot of like stories from all around the world happening during this time. And if you're going to tell a story about people killing each other, this is as good a setting as any.
A lot of people were killed here, so this seems like one of the prime moments.
It does already sound like they're super powering up the story with this like elite unit of, from different nationalities all coming together. It's like she's going to be the crack sniper, he's going to be the awesome heavy weapons guy. Well, they're doing these secretive missions behind, just near the end of the war. And I'm sure there were similar things, but it does feel like it's COD. They're going to have to stretch reality.
Oh, it'll be bombastic. But I think we all share an affection for what Battlefield 1 did with its campaign.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was World War 1.
The stories.
But there were vignettes. Each had a different lead. They had different tones, even though they were the same gameplay. There's that one with the pilot, and it's a Call of Duty mission where you land on a Zeppelin and blow it up and fly through the air and land in a canal and survive. And, it's like, and then it's an unreliable narrator story, and that's great. They can do some interesting stuff here.
They should set that as the premise for every COD game and story ever told. It's just an unreliable narrator. It's a guy in a bar telling it, being like, "This is how it happened."
Really? You did touch on the campaign thing when you sort of said that the relevancy of the Nazi Party, but they are going a little harder into like the fictional story of the four main characters, one of whom is going to be an Australian, a part of a Task Force 1 who go into Germany at the end of World War II to foil Project Phoenix, which is basically the Nazis looking for a successor to Hitler. So Hitler has already killed himself. And they're looking for someone. Basically, this is a last-ditch effort to keep the Nazi Party alive by making. And as soon as I saw it, I just thought of Pete, and I was like, by basically making Hitler 2.
Hitler 2, yeah. And you guys thought the first one was bad. Wait until you meet Hitler 2.
So that's what
mustaches.
So that's kind of what they're doing more heavily with the story here.
Yeah,
yeah. And like I understand the fatigue of these kinds of games, but like the reality is, Call of Duty's player base is 14. There's a lot of players who are young who are playing these, twitchy arcade shooters. They're the ones that are pro.
War. Yeah,
they haven't played the other versions of COD that were set in this era. So it's their first one.
And then something else encouraging, Gus, you touched on it, that we're getting a new Warzone map, and it's a brand new map. It's not just a rework of Verdansk. They haven't confirmed what the map is going to be. It is assumed that it's going to be World War II themed, but they did not come out and explicitly say it. But I would be very surprised if they launched it and they didn't. Although I would be also kind of encouraged to go, oh, that's cool that you did that, and you're basically like, not everything is about World War II this year with COD, but I don't think that's the way that'll be, because
Also,
you can
the way
share
that-
so many assets between these titles. So
Also, I hope and I doubt that they will do the thing which is like, I guess Fortnite does it more, where it's like it has to blend a bunch of biomes in one map. So if it has like little bits of Eastern Europe and little bits of London and little bits of like, it's like the Disneyland theme park ride of World War II, and you're like, oh, which bit am I in now? I think, you're right to say that they'll probably just pick like a major city and go with that. I would.
Oh no, I think they'll probably do the blend. They just won't
reckon?
need to do the blend with Verdansk. Yeah, they said that this map is going to be even bigger than Verdansk.
Yeah, right. Interesting. And then the other part is that it's being built in the same engine that they've used for Modern Warfare, which is the one that's used for Warzone, which isn't the one that's used for Cold War, which is why there's been so many like hiccups in terms of blending that game in with it as well. So I think that will be a good sign for the fact that they're going to build this from the ground up in the same engine, so it's going to feel like current Warzone, I guess.
Yeah. And then on the multiplayer side, which is the part that I'm most interested in, Call of Duty Cold War launched with 8 multiplayer maps, and this one's launching with 20. So it's got 16 core 6v6 maps and then 4 2v2 maps. They're all obviously set in World War II. Sledgehammer said that the focus is going to be on smaller, tighter maps, and we're going to get a multiplayer reveal later on before launch. But yeah, launching with 20 maps is huge, and a massive amount of variety straight ahead. So, if the gunplay is fun, then even though I don't get my cool scopes, I suppose that this is still something that I'm potentially excited about getting into. But yeah, I feel like even though it's been later, this is one of the most ambitious COD launches, I feel like, because it's truly like launching with what feels like a bit more of a cohesive narrative around how all these things are going to be tied together.
Full suite of everything.
With Warzone, Treyarch are making a zombies game, so you've got a different studio doing zombies, and it's going to be a prequel to the COD zombies. So they've got all their studios basically making one studio per zombies, COD, and Warzone, working on that, but they're all tying together and blending between each other. And I feel like this is like the culmination of the vision that Activision has had for Call of Duty for a while, and they're now figuring out kind of how to execute that hopefully smoothly.
Well, fingers crossed we get to enjoy the most atrocious time in human history.
I hope so. So we'll learn more about that over the coming months, but it's coming out in November. That's Call of Duty. Peter, also over the last couple of days, almost the exact opposite, but we got another reveal, and that is a Pokémon Presents reveal, where we got some new information about several Pokémon games. I went through and I read everything and I looked at everything, and I couldn't figure out...
Looking at everything was the first mistake.
Yeah, and I was like, I couldn't figure out what's interesting here. So all I've written here is, Pete, tell us what's cool here. So take it away, Peter.
What is arguably the most atrocious time in human history, the Pokemon Wars.
Let's start with the good.
Okay, good.
Which is that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl look great. They have the features that you would expect them to have. It's just a cute refresh of a game that we've played before. And seeing this
is Diamond and Pearl exist, and as like Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Color games.
I believe they were DS. Diamond and Pearl were the
games.
First DS games,
right? And so adding Brilliant and Shining, these are remakes of
These are the remakes with the cute chibi large head character design. I'm still thrown by. I don't love that there's one design in the world, and then they've still got the old battle engine. Like everything looks completely different in the battle mode. It looks everything. Everything is like on the right scale. I just think it's an odd thing. They were like, we could make this part cute, but we can't really mess around too much with this other part of the game. It needs to stay. It looks the same to me as in Sword and Shield, so I assume it's just that same core engine kind of module plugged into this game.
And are these considered good Pokemon games?
Diamond and Pearl, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you could find someone that says every version of Pokemon is good. They're definitely there's no doubt that they're very iterative of the version before them. And it's whether or not you find the Pokemon that appear in the region cool, I think, is the thing that has the biggest impact. Diamond and Pearl, though, introduced some cool things to do outside of the core adventure, just like time filler stuff. But you know, you can put stickers on your Pokeballs, and and people are going to spend a lot of time just doing like creative, like time killer stuff. So
chat really wanted you to talk about the stickers. So
they did.
Glad you brought that up.
They made a point of featuring it in the trailer here, and pretty early on as well. Put stickers, that zoom on the text.
Yeah, right.
Was that was the best moment in the whole thing. I did it.
You didn't add that zoom. That's in the trailer.
That's in the trailer,
right?
Union
I know,
room.
right? This whole trailer is weird.
Yeah, look, it's totally for people who play Diamond and Pearl, I think, this trailer, to go like, hey, all these things are still here.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because, like, if you haven't played it, show me that graphic. Don't show me zooming in on black and white text. It's absurd. But, I mean, Pokemon Company, you know, it's an odd organization. They found themselves on a hit and maybe don't understand how or why they got there. I did a tweet that I'm devastated didn't do huge numbers, which was so Team Galactic are the Team Rocket of this Pokemon.
The bad guys? Bad guys?
The baddies.
Okay, yep.
The baddies. And they've all got these like horrible like bowl cuts, which were cool at the time, and they're cool in this universe. But like these cuts, and I went and grabbed the bad haircut from Fleabag and just like did a color overlay of that aqua and was like, come on, this is Team Galactic on a bad hair day. It just did not trend.
I think I liked your follow-up tweet more that said, I think I overestimated the crossover between Fleabag fans and Pokemon fans.
There were like 8 of us. So yeah. So that, I mean, this is shaping up to look like it's going to be good. It's going to be fun. It's going to be what we expect. It's a classic Pokemon game. The other thing that obviously everyone was hyped to hear more about was Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is the Breath of the Wild Pokemon, basically. Mm-hmm. We saw a very early look at this. When was it? Before E3, I think.
Some might say too early.
Yeah,
they showed it at E3. I thought it was before.
No, it was
that
before E3. Yeah.
And it looked pretty rubbish then. It looked really low frame rate. It looked like an idea, but it was exciting that they were like, "Hey, we're confident enough in this idea that you'll be excited by the idea that we can show you some rough edges, and you'll kind of be able to understand that it's going to be a bit more than this." And then they showed it again, and now we're like, "Oh, it's not going to be more than that. It's going to be the worst looking thing on the Switch from a Nintendo studio."
Yeah.
It just looks awful. And I don't understand why they don't have someone at Nintendo go across there with the skill set behind a Breath of the Wild or something, or a Monster Hunter.
Just that polishing brush.
Make the world look good. Yeah. It looks it's genuinely the worst looking thing I've seen demoed in a first party.
I'm so glad you think this as well, because when I was watching it, I was like, is this, maybe I'm wrong, but this looks awful. And then I went from watching it full screen to I shrunk it down to the size of this. I held my Switch up on against my screen and made the YouTube video size the same size as the Switch screen. So I'm like, okay, at least now I'm looking at what I will kind of be looking at on the Switch.
Yeah.
I was like, no, still bad. And also like I just think uninteresting from a world. It's so muddy looking as well. Like everything is just
feels a real kind of like incongruence between like the graphic styles, between like the characters, the textures, the lighting. Like
because the Pokemon look good. The people look good. Like, but it's just the world is muddy. Maybe they'll be able to flesh this out with a bit more foliage and a bit more texture and like better textures. But it still looks like it's the footage that they're showing us in this trailer. Some of it's running well. A lot of it's running at a pretty low frame rate, like sub 30 easily, and dipping in footage in the official trailer. So I think they're struggling with the tech to make it something that's going to be. I think the ideas are cool. Like they've made basically a Monster Hunter Pokemon game, which is a great idea. But like this is the most hideous thing I could think to look at.
It's weird because Pokemon lends itself to exploration and like wanting to discover a big world. And I've got nothing against how close people have been drawing parallels to Breath of the Wild and stuff. I'm like, that fits a Pokemon formula well. Like the idea of setting out and exploring on an adventure and finding creatures. But as I said before, it just feels like there's like a clashing of, or like a lack of art direction in terms of the world of Pokemon as we saw in those little remakes. Like they can go stylized. They have a style look to them, which Pokemon can own. And I feel like here they've gone for this kind of like, oh, well, that's the characters and that's the people, but the world itself, we want to be as close to realistic as a Switch can do. And, you know, with some, you know, stylistic choices, but then you get those weird muddy textures, you get those weird cloud patterns. It's like, no, go cartoon if you want to do that and make that your look. I would go at least, but I feel like there's definitely a clashing of ideas or at least directions higher up.
Obviously, it's a very different beast, but like the Pokemon Snap games are an on-rails thing, but they perfectly capture what you expect a Pokemon world to look like.
Totally.
So to come off the back of that to this is pretty disappointing. Yeah. I've been waiting my whole life for the Pokemon RPG.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I will play this. I don't know that I can get past how
I'm
jank this looks.
Curious about
I'm definitely, you know, if it gets good reviews, then sure. But I'm not going to go out and pre-order this. I think it's a flop waiting to happen, but
oof.
Really?
Yeah. Look, no, okay. I think this will sell because it's a Pokemon game. But I think there will be a lot of disappointment because look, it's still early. Let's see what happens with it.
What about was there anything gameplay wise that got sort of like revealed here that feels like it's a game changer?
I think it looks like pretty spot on in terms of what you'd want to do out in the world. Sneaking up through tall grass. I love that idea of that being flipped on its head. You know, since the original Game Boy, it's been the Pokemon hiding in the long grass, and now it's us. So sneaking up on Pokemon, throwing balls. It doesn't like I wasn't impressed by what we saw from like a story perspective. It doesn't feel like there's going to be some cool grand adventure. It looked like all those interactions with characters were as shallow as in the other Pokemon RPGs.
Do you think they're going to waste the potential that they're setting this in an era that's kind of a prequel to the established Pokemon lore, that it is in this slightly more, I don't want to say feudal Japan, but it's like this early.
I mean, that's definitely what it's styled off.
They're doing what COD did. Everyone likes modern things, and now they've gone back to the past.
But that means there's the potential to have like a story with, you know, people trying to still understand the Pokemon and maybe learn the technology.
Totally. And totally. There's like, this is the world's first Pokeball and it's made out of wood kind of thing.
Yeah. You think they might squander that?
I love all that as ideas. Nothing about this trailer gave me hope for story. Gameplay, I think, looks kind of right in that, like, it is that you sneak up and try and catch them. If you get spotted by them, you go into a battle mode that is like a turn-based, like third-person perspective thing in the same engine. It's kind of feels like it just kind of zooms out. Though that looks like it's more kind of in with the Pokemon thing, but. Yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. I'm pretty disappointed by this trailer.
That's a shame. I am seeing people in chat saying that the Pokemon have confirmed that there is a multiverse, so there's no one timeline. So this isn't necessarily like how it all started. It's like how some of it started in one universe.
I think I'm just excited the idea that it feels like they tackling it in a different way. And I think there's still a reason to be excited, considering how you said, Pete, how iterative Pokemon games are and how they are very carbon copy of themselves with changes that people like. This, for me, is the first one that's doing something different enough that I would be excited to start playing it. But I'm with you on everything you said in terms of being unimpressed by it visually and kind of scope-wise. It does feel a little bare bones still how they've put it in front of us now. And I'm like, again, as someone who will not pick up a Pokemon game because it's something I'm meant to be nostalgic for, I would pick this up to experiment and see if they can do something mildly different with it. But
I just think the next main line is if it takes the ideas that Sword and Shield introduced further, then the next mainline game is going to be far more interesting in its open areas than this looks.
Maybe there's a reason they haven't tackled the RPG yet because it just doesn't work. But
yeah.
Well, we're going to see. I'm sorry that was so disappointing for you. Was there anything else during the thing? There was no Pokemon Sleep, which is arguably the thing that I was most interested in. But
sorry, Pokemon Sleep?
It's like a sleep tracker. It's like Pokemon Go, but for sleeping, so you don't even need to go walking. It just does things while you're asleep.
It's pretty bad. It was pretty bare bones. It just tackled the two kind of big releases.
Yeah, cool.
Right.
All right. Well, that is Pokemon. I'm sorry, everyone. Lots of people in chat excited for words that I don't understand. There's people are talking about Stantlers, Basculians, I don't know, Silians, and a lot of it is in capital letters. There's a lot of capital letters to the point where I'm like, mods,
being shouted at.
Let's clamp down on this. But then a lot of it is coming from a couple of very specific mods are doing a lot of the screaming. So who am I? Everything's gone out of control.
They did announce a new character for Unite and stuff. So there was a little bit of Unite updates and new patch, like some some tweaks happening to the meta in Unite. But
that's right. And they also
pretty standard.
Confirmed the
mobile release,
mobile launch as well, which is September 22nd. Yep. Let's move on now from Pokemon and into another game that puts everything in their game, and that is Fortnite, that have put another game into their game. So last week, Fortnite announced and released Fortnite Imposters. As a heads up, we did a Fortnite Imposters sponsored stream last week with a bunch of other Australian streamers as part of Back Pocket. But as it is Fortnite's want, they kind of wholeheartedly took something and put it in their game and went, well, they kind of unashamedly went, yep, it's that thing, but it's our thing now. And there has been quite a bit of consternation online and coming from the devs of Among Us about how wholehearttweetedly they feel Fortnite just ripped off their mode and put it into the game. And there was a series of tweets from a bunch of different developers from Inner Sloth who develop Among Us, expressing their disappointment that they weren't asked to collaborate on something, particularly given that like Fortnite is... the identity of Fortnite is almost collaboration, right? It's like, we're going to work with Marvel. We're going to work with whoever, Rick and Morty. We're going to work with Ryan Reynolds, and all of these things are going to be in a game at once.
Exists into our game.
And that apparently there was none of that. And some of the devs were tweeting out like how map design is similar, use of the words imposters, like the terminology around the game is similar, and feeling like it's a bit of a shitty situation for them. Peter, how do you feel about how Epic went about this, and whether it's this sort of like anger online is justified?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clearly a carbon copy, and I think anger is like frustration from the developers is totally justified. I think anyone who turns their nose up at Epic is totally justified. I remember when I was playing PUBG a lot when Fortnite first came about, and I remember just thinking how slimy it was of Fortnite to like carbon copy that back then. It's evolved as a battle royale a lot since then because it's borrowed. It's obviously come up with its own new ideas, and the building was always a new idea for Fortnite. Before it became the battle royale it is today, but it's kind of been that one that's been swallowing good ideas from Apex and from all of its peers forever. It does have the player base. It does have the Epic cash behind it to it's that kind of, once that beast is rolling, that snowball is like, that's how they're getting those deals with companies like Disney, is because they are the biggest game in the world. I don't think this, which I think is clearly a carbon copy of Among Us. People who say that other versions of these like imposter games like Werewolf and whatever have existed long before Among Us, that's true. This is a carbon copy of Among Us in the Fortnite engine, though. Like, I don't think there's really many new ideas in this that separate it from Among Us. And so the frustration absolutely justified, particularly from the developers. I understand the developers were in conversations with Epic, and a deal was never reached.
I thought that among the Among Us devs had reached out to Epic but had never heard back.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's what it was, because I believe that part of the reason that and I could be wrong, I should double check that, but I think part of the reason that, from my perspective, Fortnite didn't do this is because if you start a conversation with the Among Us devs about working together on something, and then you can't reach terms, and then you put that thing in your game anyway, then you've kind of really opened yourself up to going like, oh no, we spoke about this, you guys said no, and we went ahead and did it. And I think that there's a lot more gray area if you just go ahead and do it yourself, and not really ask for permission, because like the Among Us devs sort of came out and went, look, we never copywrote the game mechanic, they shouldn't be gate kept. They were frustrated that it's like the theme that you're kind of on a spaceshipy style thing, the terminology of like using the words imposters and just a lot of that feels very similar, and I think that that's totally valid as well. From my perspective, sorry, Gus.
I was going to say, the developers even are one of them that what you were saying before. They said they didn't patent the Among Us mechanics because they said it wouldn't lead to a healthy game development industry, which I totally agree with. And that's an interesting forward foot for them to be on, in terms of saying, hey, we never locked this down because we think, as a concept, as a genre, it should be available to iterate on and to build on. But then putting in this tweet, is it really that hard to put 10% more effort into putting your own spin on it, though? So, like, it's a war of words at this stage versus anything overly legal. But I do agree with them. They're kind of like, Fortnite really have gone, we're not even going to make a strong departure from the spaceship, from the activities you need to be doing and around it. They polish the shit out of it. Like, I'll give them that in terms, but that's because they can. They're Epic. They're Fortnite. They have enough money and time and talent to do that. So I wonder if they're just expecting that to be their point of difference, where they're like, hey, third-person action, heaps of animations and sound effects and stuff. But I think that's a much weaker argument to have, rather than, hey, we took it and we turned it into the Fortnite version of it.
I do think...
So in that sense, I agree with them. Yeah.
I do... I think this one's really hard, because I totally get... I'm completely get in a sloss thing of going... This is the design of the ship is very similar, and the terminology is similar. So it feels like a rip. But then I also go, well, like, yes, but you did take that idea from a game like Werewolf or Mafia or Secret Hitler or whatever. Like, those sort of, you took that from a board game space and put it in a video game, and that's cool. You added the task mechanic, which is absolutely different. I think, to me, that's the same as Fortnite adding the building mode to the sort of PUBG thing. That is like, oh yeah, that's a significant point of difference. Yeah. Fortnite then, with this imposters one, like, they do have the sabotage things, which I think is significant. It's not necessarily a game changer, but the fact that, like, when you're an imposter running around, you can do things that, like, sabotage everything, turn everyone into a banana, transport people across the ship. Like, I think there is an element there of, like, that's different.
There are sabotages in Among Us, but they're not. But you have to go to a place. And do
they're not that sort of like global,
like, passively.
Totally, yes.
You have ultimate abilities.
Yeah. And I do think like the 3D, I guess all of this is saying I prefer this to Among Us, but that doesn't mean that I don't totally understand the Among Us thing. I found this much more fun. Like, I preferred the way it played. I think that the third-person perspective adds attention, because you're running around. It's not like you see someone running behind you, hear footsteps behind you, and you're like wondering where people are. So I think that there is stuff like that where I go, I actually think this is a better version of what Among Us do. And I think the real issue is that like Fortnite have enough money, Epic has enough money to be able to open up a conversation with Innersloth and probably come to some agreement. And they didn't do that. And I think it's one of those things of like, yes, in an ideal world, that's what we would expect, but it's a business run by suits, and so therefore they're not like, if they have a chance to save money, they're not going to do it.
They don't have
collaborate,
to.
yeah, and they collaborate with Marvel because they go, well, we can't put Thanos into
Iron
our
Man,
game without being sued, but we can put this game mode in there and make enough changes that it's not exactly the same thing, and so therefore we won't do this. And so it's kind of like, I don't know, it's not ideal, but it's
a choice they made, and
it's
a choice they made and a risk they made to say, hey, look, if we don't reach out to the Among Us devs, if we don't try and show some kind of like level of cooperation between it, then we run the risk of essentially what is happening now, which is some bad press, some people, you know, turning their backs on this mode or on this game, and maybe having a bit of a bad vibe about Fortnite that might not have existed for that audience beforehand. But is that worth the extra money they saved not approaching the Among Us devs to Epic? Possibly. Like that,
probably.
Do you know what I mean? Like that, for them, they might be like, that's fine. We can definitely live with some articles, some podcasts talking about it. Again, if it's not turning up in the courts, then
I just don't know.
They can do that because they can steamroll over a small indie dev, and that is not good practice. Like that is unethical in the sense of just good communication
from like a moral standpoint.
Correct. Yeah, but at the same time, like as you said, it's suits, it's business, and there's companies around the world doing, you know, shitty dealings, and every time they can tighten a purse string and not have to do something, they won't. And so I think, it's just either a question of how bad that press is and stays, and how bad the stigma attached to it, or whether Fortnite does what they did with the Battle Royale, and this is the first step of them creating the imposter mode that they continually add maps to, change things, work out what works better, do what they've done with the Battle Royale, which is, it is light years away from what PUBG is now, and they had to start somewhere with that model to say, this is how we're going to break it. So I don't think building to it back. Yeah, that doesn't earn them back the shitty behavior that they had to do to get there in the first place, but it does show that they had a roadmap at the start of it. So I'd be curious to see if this does just turn into something that goes away in a few months, if it's super timed and they
because it is being pitched as a limited time mode, which arguably you go, if it's successful, they'll probably keep it in. But if it's just like a fun side thing and then they go back to their bread and butter, then I would say that it will ultimately end up being good for Among Us, because people will go, I still want to get that fix, so I'm going to go there.
So we'll see what happens in, you know, a few months from now, and whether or not they try and make it, you know, the next big thing in Fortnite.
It's hard because I think it's the better game, but I don't like the way that it went down. But I think it's the better game, but I don't like the way that it went down. So I don't know what to do about that, other than never make an idea that Fortnite could steal. Moving on now to our next story, and this is a two-prong, because there's a really good part to this story and a really bad part to this story. Let's start with the good part. Let's start with something positive, and that is the new operator in Rainbow Six Siege, OSA, was revealed, and she is a trans woman. She's a 2 health, 2 speed, 2 difficulty character that has a very cool clear shield that she can use and mount onto walls, windows, or just carry around for herself. And this stuff was all revealed in the trailer. And there was some gameplay footage of how to use her as a character, but GameSpot noticed a line in the biography of the character mentioning a transition, and they reached out to Ubisoft for confirmation, and Ubisoft came back and said the decision to create a transgender character was made early on as part of our initiative to have an inclusive roster of operators. The consultants, all of whom are trans people, wanted to make sure that OSA was presented as authentically and organically as possible, and that also included hiring a queer person to write the character and a trans woman to voice her. So it seems like from the sort of ground up, this was done in a way that was inclusive, that was representative and authentic. And purposeful, I do think, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say purposeful. It wasn't something that they tacked on to a character afterwards. As like totally.
And I do think it's pretty amazing that one of the most progressive AAA games at the moment is a hardcore military shooter, and that seems to be working more and more to be you know, at this point, probably even more inclusive than something like Overwatch, which was the previous like gold standard of the idea of like representation in this kind of game. Gus, you're a Siege fan.
I am.
From a story perspective, or from a story and character perspective, how do you feel about this? And then also from a gameplay perspective, what do you think of her kit?
Yeah, from like a story and character development, I think this is fantastic. I think it's great that this happened. But I also think it's great that it was one of those things that was, you know, designed and written, that there wasn't fanfare from Ubisoft about when it launched, being like, hey, this is what we're pushing. It's like, no, this is a new character with a great personality, a great ability, and, you know, this is why you're going to want to play as her. And that then it took, you know, a little bit of digging for people to realize, oh, that was something that was part of that character's design and or that character's development, which I think is the natural way for this stuff to happen in the future of all media going forward. It doesn't need to have a light shone on it to the point that it is like, you know, okay, it starts to lose a little bit of its natural like integration into the world. So I think in that sense, it's fantastic. And I, from a gameplay standard, I have my operators that I play as, and they generally have abilities that only work against AI, not against humans. I suck at Siege against people. This is an ability that I find the abilities quite funny in a sense that Siege started as this game that had like these kind of like, these are the scenarios you'll be in, and then the game has developed. It's been around for so long that it's like people have found ways to utilize or, you know, manipulate some of those abilities, and so now it's turned into more of a thing about like, in this case, information is really important. And I think for someone to be able to put this shield out and be able to call and spot to your teammates who's in a room with a bomb, with a hostage, and what you can do with it, is super important. And in that sense, I think it's probably game changing on like the esports or the competitive level. For me, unless it explodes or revives my down teammates, I'm not going to use it, because that's all I need to do. But I think some people are going to find some really interesting ways to use this. And that's what I discovered when I've been watching a lot of people play this professionally, is how they use these abilities in ways that are like still the way the game it's intended. I think what's interesting is how quickly it's essentially a breach as well. Like the way it breaches all these boarded windows, obviously not any destructible walls. It's just the reinforced entry points. It does seem to be one window wide. So if you do a double, you do need to, you're still vulnerable in that sense. But,
it does have an extension. I don't think it's a double window, but it has the narrow one. And then I think it one and a half times size.
Yeah, it's got wings basically, and so when you put it on the ground, it's a bit skinnier, but has a little bit of flank protection.
Yeah, totally.
Okay,
but when you put it in a window frame, it pulls all the way out to brace.
I'd say it's definitely a tad more useful than a lot of the abilities I've been seeing. Maybe in the last 6 months or so, where there's like a guy who can run through a wall, and like some of them felt like they were getting a little bit silly and a little bit unrealistic. I think this feels like something that's a development on a tactical piece of hardware. So I think people are going to really enjoy it. Again, I do use Blackbeard, who puts a little perspex shield on his gun, which is so stupid. So, you know, in that sense, maybe it's useful. I might chuck this up in some terrorist hunt or some training ground maps. And I'm definitely excited to, see more operators and just see how they color out their roster. Because, man, this game just keeps pushing on. Like, give it respect for that as well.
For me, it's like, I think it looks really cool. Does it make all of the other carryable shields in the game totally redundant?
It does look like you can use it portably, like you can carry it, I think.
Yeah, you can walk around with it, and then you can place it, and it's transparent, so you can maintain kind of lines of sight and keep getting information. Sure, people can see you through the other side of it, but I feel like for the most part, people know when you're behind your shield that you put down. So it's like, what little you lose and then being able to see you through it, you gain so much in being able to get the information you need as well, because you're the one that makes the decision.
The regular shields you deploy do have little perspex slits through them. So if you do put it down, you can...
Fuse, Blitz, and I think it's Montaigne all have that sort of like ballistic shield with the slit. But then you've got Clash, who she's the British cop who has the full... It's not perspex, whatever, like clear shield that can stun and electrify as well. And it's full body, so she can, like, the advantage she has is she can kind of walk at you and you just cannot shoot her front on. Yeah, whereas this shield is smaller, so I think that you have that. But I think, like, I played quite a bit of competitive Siege for about a year and a half, and I would love a character like this. I think it's like there's so much utility to just that small, like being able to just like punch a hole in a barricade and really safely peek through in the same way that Blackbeard does, but then being able to like mark everyone there and then, like you said, burst through, put that thing in there and completely block off that area is really great. I just think that, yeah, it's a super solid shield option.
It is destroyable though, which is another interesting point of like, once it's gone, it's gone. So
yeah, totally.
And it's cool for an attacker to have a shield as well, as Argon points out. Most of those shields are attached to defenders, so
there was
attacking with a shield. The best offense is a good defense.
That is true. There was an operator who came out in like the last couple of seasons who can put a little glass window through a barricade to look through and watch people. I remember seeing and thinking that was a bit not silly, just like not understanding the advantage of it. I think Mira. She can reinforce a wall and then put a little like window to watch people through it as they come past.
Again, it's Mirror's great because it's a one-way thing. So you can see through, but no one can see through back at you. They know that it's there, but it basically just the move with that was you just put that in there and then punch a hole next to it. So you're always looking through the mirror and then aiming at whoever's coming, and then you just like peek to the left and pop them, and they only just see you through the hole as opposed to a mirror. So yeah, I think that they've done a really good job of this kit. I think it looks really exciting, and I think from from a story and narrative perspective, it's really great to just see the game continue developing this really robust and varied roster of people. I mean, the only thing at this point that links them all is they're all killers. So at some
they
point,
will play an esports in an arena, Nick. The way they've done that story,
of course,
that the lore of the world is that they all go into an arena and kill each other, and then see each other in the change rooms after. I'm like, I don't understand this game, but sure.
Yeah, and then if they wanted to be truly progressive, they would put in a white cis man, but he just runs in the middle of the field with a white flag. Goes, no, stop it. And that's genuine change. All right, someone's going to clip that and take that out of context, and it'd be totally
and put it next
like
to
me going
Gus's,
Hitler too.
Hitler's great.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, awesome move by the Siege team to be able to put this character in, and as we said, written by a queer person, voiced by a trans woman, just ticking all the boxes in the way of doing this properly. Yep. The flip side to this, which has nothing to do with Siege, but is Ubisoft related, is that Ubisoft Singapore are under official investigation for sexual harassment. So a story came out like a month and a half ago, sort of mid-July, early July, on Kotaku, talking about the problems at that studio, and it sounded like everything there was pretty bad. Singapore now joins Ubisoft Montreal, Toronto, Quebec. Is it Montpellier? Is that how I pronounce that? Montpellier, and Paris as being studios that have been documented with sexual harassment or really awful workplace conditions. And so Singapore joins this list now, but they are being investigated by the Tripartite Alliance for Fair and Progressive Employment Practices, Singapore's national workdog, workplace watchdog that looks into equal pay, discrimination, employment standards, and all that sort of thing. Following reports that the studio culture has gotten so bad that in a Straits Time report, it said that a quote from a former developer at the publisher of Assassin's Creed and Far Cry said, Ubisoft Singapore has always been known internally to be one of the worst Ubisoft studios in terms of culture. People would visit from other studios and be like, what the fuck is wrong here? Which, if you have to be coming from other studios that are having their own problems and come there and be like, oh, this place is actually bad, is pretty significant. So it looks like they're under an official investigation, and we're going to see how that turns out.
Yeah. Good.
I mean,
no. How is this so?
I agree. It's like we've been talking about similar things for different companies and everything as well, and adding another one to the pile feels exhausting, but at the same time still relevant, and it's good for, I guess, like for this to be called out, not just like globally from the kind of like just attitude towards a company, but for them to be actually responsible for their actions in the sense that now we're getting them being targeted by the
tripartite
a
Alliance
local
for
body
Fair and
or
Progressive Employment.
a body that actually is there to prevent this stuff happening is clamping down on it in the appropriate ways, which I think is better than reading an article about someone just responding and just talking back and forth, and it just turning into like a naysaying and that kind of stuff as well. It's somewhat relieving to have action being taken in that regard, and so hopefully it's the right course of action and the right people have found out, and the people who work hard can still get by, but the people who are the problematic parts of it are removed.
I think as well that there is an element to this that because it's a Singapore-based studio, that Ubisoft needs a lot of their workers are actually French or from just other countries other than Singapore. That's also been an issue with the studio. Apparently, is that there's they describe it as a French ceiling, as basically French was the main language spoken on the studio floor and stuff. So it kind of felt like everyone from Singapore who worked there felt like they were working at a French company, and it was hard to go up the chain, because you ended up just getting French people getting promoted around you instead. But because it is a French company, this is a office in a different country, then the Ministry of Manpower in Singapore actually need to give them permits for foreign staff to work there, and that would impact about 60% of the studio's expert and senior expert roles if those were to be denied, which they could as a result of this investigation. They go, okay, we're going to revoke your work permits. And that's also some of the reporting that came out about the Skull and Bones is the reason that Skull and Bones is still in active development when it sounds like it's such a nightmare, is that there was some sort of agreement with the Singaporean government to go, this is a video game that's going to be produced here and you have to put it out. And so again, the government being able to come in and go, unless you change your studio culture, we are going to revoke 60% of your senior development visas, and they're going to have to leave. That's the kind of thing that hits the company incredibly hard. So
and they still have to make the game.
And they still have to make the game, yeah. And so, unfortunately, that's the kind of thing that is like that could cause, some change, because it hits them on a very significant bottom line level.
Sort of said there what I was thinking as well. It's the idea that I think from our understanding with Skull and Bones, or with that incentive that they took from the government, it was essentially like, hey, here's kind of an upfront support system that we're putting here to help you guys, whether it's financially or something along those lines, to give them the time they need to make that game. And now they are indebted to the Singaporean government, or whatever system was put in place for them to set that up. And I'm curious to know what kind of power they have to then take back those resources and as you said, clamp down and really possibly squash that game ever actually coming to fruition as well, which would suck, but is also like, it's a...
Look, I don't think it's in the government's interest to kill that game.
No, but it is in their interest to make sure that this company or this...
Ubisoft would be hemorrhaging money into the Singapore market because they're stuck there, because they have this game that they don't want to release but have to make.
Have to keep making, yeah.
That they just can't get right.
That's
I'm sure part of the deal is that... Well, part of the deal would be that local Singaporean developers are employed to work on it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's money going back into the tax system of Singapore. Like, it benefits the Singapore government to keep
You're right, maybe.
My concern is that Ubisoft have power over the government in that way, in saying like, well, you're not going to get rid of us because you need us, because otherwise this thing doesn't happen. Like, it's like, it's a gross, complex thing. But the best thing that can happen is that the watchdog, plucks the weeds, and they can fuck off.
Yeah. Also, there's
and
I was just going to say, there's some great lines in chat as well. Particular love for the Ministry of Manpower. Sith Cat says, what a name. Joshy says, what's the bet? The Ministry of Woman Power is more efficient. And Mac and Dacta said, pretty sure my sister saw the Ministry of Manpower in Melbourne for her hens night.
The Ministry of Women Power is more efficient. They just don't have to don't have to shout it out to everyone. They just happily being more efficient. And the Manpower one's stomping around being like, look what we're doing. It's like, it's not that that great, guys.
And then Rough Puff said that this Skull and Birch is contractually obligated not to be cancelled before release, which is a nice little reference. So we'll see how this turns out, but pretty big movements are underway there, and the reckoning continues, I suppose. And then the final story we have today, rounding out our with the exception of Pokemon, completely shooter-filled episode, is that rumors of the third Battlefield 2042 mode have leaked from a pretty successful leaker called Temporeal, and saying that the new mode called Hazard Mode is going to
go pro soon.
Yeah, with a name like that?
Pro leaker.
Pro leaker, right. And then noting that Hazard Mode is going to be a mix between Escape from Tarkov and Hunt Showdown. So we know so far that 2042 has your standard
and
Battlefield multiplayer, and Among Us has your standard Battlefield multiplayer, and then the oh god, what's the thing called? What's their maker mode? Portal. Thank you very much. Yep. Is the second one. The third one was suspected to be potentially like a battle royale one, but it sounds like it could be slightly different to this. Tarkov is a first-person shooter where you sort of like do raids and fight against other players to get loot and escape the map, and then Hunt Showdown is collecting bounties from monsters and AI around the map. So it sounds like it could be a combination of those two. It also sounds like something that Gus would love the heck out of.
Oh yeah. This is great in terms of, obviously, I feel like it might have elements of Battle Royale-ness to it in the same way that now Fortnite has AI moving around the map and things like that. But I loved playing Hunt Showdown. I have still not played Escape from Tarkov, but I loved watching it, and I liked how that changed people's approach to a arena multiplayer game, I guess. I'm trying to think of it, not arena, but like the way to describe what these things are now. They're like large map, smaller conflicts, and pitting yourself against other players, or pitting yourself against AI with the risk of other players being around, I think is for me a really interesting, and probably where the best elements of Battle Royale come out to shine. For me, I play Plunder all the time in Warzone, which is like, you focus on an objective, but you have to be aware that there are people around. There are respawns there. Like, taking that away makes things a little more like consequences a little more intense. But I like multifaceted, multi-objective multiplayer games in your shooters. And I tried to drag Pete to play some Hunt because it's such a great game for, like, I think it's 2 to 3
Sorry,
people.
I just got a fax. I'll be right.
The fax is play Hunt with me, you bastard. I think these are always really interesting, and it's nice to see. I mean, relevant to the story we said, it's nice to see when people want to blend game styles together and come up with something interesting. They don't always hit the mark, but like when they do, or when they are at least slightly more interesting, I find they have long lasting impressions. And for Battlefield to do this, great. Make your version of Plunder, make it something where you're in a conflict and you can't quite tell who's human and who's not. I don't know. Like, I'm not here for ideas, guys. I'm just here to say I'm excited about it, and I am.
Night Mode in the chat said, as someone with 2,000 hours in Escape from Tarkov, I hope it's more like Hunt Showdown. I think what they mean by that is that they don't want to have a second game that's like the one they already play, but it really comes off as like, I put 2,000 hours into a game that I don't enjoy.
And I've just worked out that it sucks.
And from memory, Tarkov is like, there's a big preparation phase. You go into an area, like a restricted area, you PvP, and I'm not sure if there's AI. I don't think there is. You scavenge, and then you want to get out alive. You want to exfil, extract, all that kind of stuff, which I love. I think, having those decision-making moments within it. The closing ring thing is just, I feel, has gotten more and more derivative to the point that it just, like, it doesn't make sense in any game. Battlefield doing it as a huge ring of fire was the coolest one, and that didn't last, unfortunately. So I think these versions of it, where it's like a persistent battleground that you go, all right, we're geared up, are we ready for this? Let's get in, get out, feels far more, I don't want to say realistic, but just far more like grounded, and therefore probably a bit more fun to continually come back to. So yeah,
Night Mode confirms they hate it.
They hate it.
Oh, really?
It's definitely the second thing. It's a hate-love relationship. I can't go through it again. That's amazing.
I think, like,
sure, it'll be more streamlined, because Tarkov, from everything I watched as well, is incredibly complex, and I feel like they might add some complexity here, but the idea is that it's going to have broader appeal, which means that it'll have all the dice's nice polish to make things a little more accessible. And yeah, as I said, this sounds cool, and don't just keep making battle royales, keep coming up with weird ways to mess with multiplayer. now that we can do huge maps, now that we can do large amounts of players coming in weird instances and stuff, do something creative with it. So this sounds cool.
Yeah.
Pete, I thought you had something.
I'm just like my thought process there is, and it's not necessarily directly related to Battlefield or any game, but it's like these beasts that launch with so many. Like, I'm all for there being. I think it's good that there's a lot of different options for players to play your game. At what point is it too many? At what point are you spreading your ideas really thin across multiple? Like, a COD has obviously had a lot of success with having zombies as a module, multiplayer, Warzone now. Campaigns are the most fleeting because they're kind of one and done. So yeah, it's interesting that, I mean, Battlefield going to have 3. Well, I mean, like, the Portal will be interesting because it's like, that's basically a sandbox playroom.
It's a forge, or
could be, there's infinite amount of ideas that'll be put into there by a community in the same way that Halo's Forge kind of works. So yeah, it's just like, it's just
you're right in the sense that now there's the precedent.
I think it's good. Ultimately, I think it's good. So like, I didn't want to bring it up as a negative thing. I know what you mean. Just a funny hearing, like, Battlefield is now all of these other things.
Yeah, and I totally take that point. I think part of it could also be the fact that they are still charging you for this game, so they're kind of going like a dearth of, like, we want to put a glut of content, not a dearth. Like, we actually want to, in a world where you can play a lot of multiplayer games for free. Obviously, they didn't know. We assume Halo was coming out around the same time and for free as well. But they knew that the idea of games as a service is you can play a lot of stuff for free, that they're going, we only have multiplayer, we don't have a campaign. So what are we adding to this that makes it feel as though people are happy to spend $80 to $130 on a game like this?
And it's interesting, that's a really good point, Pete. I hadn't thought of, in the sense that, like, I grew up playing single player games that would sometimes have a multiplayer game attached, and you'd be like, this is cool. It's like a bonus thing that has longevity to the game. And then we've now, you're right, with something like zombies, it's like, oh, it's you had campaign, you had multiplayer, and you had this extra little thing as well. And now with battle royales, with, Warzone-esque kind of large scale add-ons that have become standalone in their own sense, it's like, you need to look at your launch roster, or you need to have your, well, I guess Battlefield's not having the campaign, but it's like, you need 3 things at launch. Like, you need whether or not it's the campaign, the multiplayer, and that extra kind of thing as well. That's become expected in a lot of big releases. And so to not have that, in this case, I didn't know Battlefield was putting 3 out. I thought it was literally the Portal was the extra little thing they were doing. But it's not, I think, unexpected for a big game to go, we need to have an extra hook. We need something that's like, and here's our take on this. And that's becoming the third thing in the menu that you tap across to when you launch these games. And whether or not you're right, that might be an idea that was a bit too thinly spread out and doesn't have the big enough player base who jump on it at launch. That can happen. And it, as I said, with Battlefield's Battle Royale, it's sad when you see effort, design, thought, and, heaps of work go into something that people just go, no, we were here for the multiplayer and that's all. So, yeah, fingers crossed it's unique enough. Yeah.
And that technical alpha is going on right now, and there are some leaks coming out of that obviously we can't show, but I have watched, and they look good.
If you YouTube Battlefield 2042 leak, it's just pages full of footage. It's all getting taken down, but there's more going up every minute.
Yeah, it looks good.
It's looking really cool.
Game looks good. Can't wait. Game looks good. All right, that is literally all the video game news that happened this week.